But other than that, yeah, it's not the end of the world for this for these players when it comes to their prizes.
And we are underway here. 75 minutes. These players are going to be playing best 2 out of 3. And we're going to have somebody trying to get to the finals of the World Championship.
There is a Bridget right away here from Diego Cassiraga as he is going to be searching through his deck. No doubt likely going to be noticing that his auxiliary is missing. It seems like he only plays 1 auxiliary in this list. He does play a couple of Remorates, but only a single auxiliary. So missing that auxiliary can definitely hurt you there, as I think he actually fanned a Remorate to the bottom here. So he is yet to find out that the auxiliary is missing.
Yeah, just taking a look. It's nice to get that information on this opening search here for himself. He does play cards like Alolan Vulpix. That'll be a way to continue to add to your board. So if he wants to start to work towards that, that's always an option. He has the Diancie so that he can start getting some evolutions into play as well. So it really just depends what Diego feels is going to be his best option here.
It looks like it was Alolan Vulpix, not Remoraid, that he got to the bottom. So that's much better for him. But yeah, you're absolutely right that Alolan Vulpix is going to be one of the big ones, and obviously a couple of routes to make sure that you get your evolutions in play. Diancie as well.
And Alolan Vulpix is a pretty nice addition to this deck. We see it a lot in the Decidueye decks. They love to play this Alolan Vulpix, especially because they can use the Alolan Ninetales as well. But we see that just the sheer use of Beacon is fantastic for you in this deck, being able to search out these Pokemon and start to get your Gallade and Gardevoirs rolling.
So it looks like Diego is going to be finding the Remoraid regardless of the fact that his auxiliary is prized. Maybe he's hoping to find it early on in his prizes.
That's confidence. He's going to be drawing surprises.
Yeah, no kidding. And beyond that, I mean, you still want to threaten the auxiliary. Just because you don't evolve into auxiliary doesn't mean your opponent just assumes it's prized. Your opponent's always going to have that in mind if you have the Remoraid in play.
Yep.
And Tapu Lele now going to be wonder tagging for any supporter in Diego's deck, and he's going to find it, put it in his hand. Finds the end. Will he be playing the end?
Well, he played Bridget, so I hope not.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. And it looks like he's just going to be finding that end for the future, for future reference.
Yep. Now, the fact that he played the Tapu Lele down this turn probably signifies that he's going to play a double colorless energy on it. It's very scary to play double colorless energy on your routes. You're pretty much asking for your opponent to play a Guzma and knock out your routes with their own Tapu Lele. So that's the reason why he's going to play that supporter now and just make sure that that Lele can start to interact with Xander's board while he starts to build his Gardevoirs.
And speaking of Xander, Xander's now taking his own first turn of the game as he immediately attaches a psychic energy onto the Eevee, and now he's going to be energy evolutioning, looking for an Espeon GX here. But beyond that, he's also looking through his deck, trying to figure out what his prizes are. And he's going to get the good news that his prizes aren't all that bad.
Yeah, we see that Xander does have some notes that he likes to take during the match. He may record anything that looks a little obscure for him, but his prize cards really didn't stand out too much, so nothing drastic that he's going to find here.
Looks like he is going to be taking some notes as to what he's finding prized.
Oh.
Well,
that's the field blower's not there. What else?
All right. Looks like it's just a field blower. But either way, he will be finding a Pokemon at some point. This is not uncommon for these players to do on their first turn of the game. You definitely want to give yourself that advantage, or at least not give yourself the disadvantage of not searching through your deck and taking a good hard look at your deck.
Yeah, we see Xander. He is going to get that Espeon into play, which means that he has the opportunity to use Psybeam very early. He can start to put some pressure onto the routes. But what else does Xander have? He hasn't used a supporter, and it looks like he just had to attack, and that's it.
Right. It looks like all he could do was Psybeam. He didn't have any supporters at all in his hand, or at least none that he wanted to play.
Via Seeker, Floatstone, Espeon, and something else that wasn't a playable supporter. So, yeah, he might be stuck here unless Diego gives him an N, and he plays Sycamore down. So, Diego's likely going to find out that Xander has nothing in these coming turns.
Xander's going to need a lot of help from the top of his deck if he wants to make this first game competitive, as Diego still has no Gardevoir GX, but I mean, he still has such a big field advantage against Xander, who not only has no supporter, but really has nothing aggressive going for himself outside of that Espeon GX, which just steals 30 damage.
Yep.
At this point, if you can beacon, you definitely will, and it seems like he's planning on doing so. Actually, I take that back. It looks like he's planning on taking the Tapu Lele action.
Yeah, he attached the double colorless energy, and it looks like he's choosing who he's going to retreat to, and he's going to play it pretty slow for himself.
Yeah, does decide on the Vulpix. That makes a lot more sense to me. Tapu Lele would deal some damage to Espeon GX, but it wouldn't be a relevant amount. So at this point, you really just want to beacon and get your setup going.
Yep, and
looks a couple of curlies with beacon and ends the turn. Xander looks like he's tapping the table, almost hoping here. Well, definitely hoping here for the top of his deck to provide a lot of magic for him.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards that can help him out of this spot. He hasn't played any card into his discard pile yet, so Ultra Ball, any supporter that can draw would be great.
Well, it looks like he finds an N, which
That's
is right.
the best one.
Just what the doctor ordered, absolutely the best one here. As he finds an N, plays a Garbodor with a Floatstone attached to it, so that's going to mean no more abilities here for Gardevoir GX or any of its other ability Pokemon in the deck. For the meantime, anyways. And now all of a sudden, Xander's field is not looking all too bad after that.
Yeah, it looks like he planned this. I mean, sometimes you just, I'll just get the end. But it worked out for him. He even is able to find an extra energy for this turn. He's not going to miss that. So everything is really going Xander's way here.
A very powerful start here for Xander. Will he be able to start putting on some damage against Diego here? Or will Diego find what he needs to be able to put the aggression right back onto Xander? We'll find out in just a few moments as Diego draws a card from the top of his deck to start his turn. He's got a rare candy and he's got an Ultra Ball. So we're going to be looking at a Gardevoir GX more than likely here.
Yeah, this is pretty big for Diego. He's able to get his Gardevoir out. Unfortunately, won't have access to his ability due to that Garbotoxin being in effect with the Floatstone. So Diego now is probably going to have to search for a little more out of with his supporter. He's got that Professor Sycamore, and a Field Blower would be fantastic for him.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, but at the same time, yes, it does suck to be under the Garbotoxin lock, but you have the better attacker by miles. Your opponent has no Trubbish in sight, which means your opponent won't be able to trash land you, and Espeon GX isn't exactly a card that Gardevoir GX fears.
Yeah, that's true. The confusion can get a little scary. It's when you'd like to have access to some abilities to draw, but he doesn't have that Octillery, and he doesn't have that Gallade for premonitions either. So he is going to have to play this a tad slower than he likes to.
Ultra Ball discarding a couple of Fairy Energies, and you see that die keeps ticking up. That means that there's more and more items in Diego's discard pile.
Yep, generally when you play in this matchup, the die can be relevant until Diego does decide to use his GX attack. When he does use Twilight, he's going to likely take a lot of item cards from his discard pile, place them back into his deck, and nullify any Trash-a-Lanche.
But until that happens, you're absolutely right. That die definitely matters quite a bit. And an N here from Xander.
Diego, with no risks, doesn't want to try the confusion flip.
I don't think I would either.
I would not either.
There's quite a bit of downside to that and very little upside, especially when your opponent's going to be likely playing an N.
Xander now is going to find himself 6 fresh cards and really just wants to start building onto this board state. He knows he can take a knockout onto the Alolan Vulpix. Some Trubbish would be fantastic for him. He'd be able to start working on some Trash-a-Lanche. And other than that, that's all his deck really does. So he's just going to hope that this is enough pressure to really stop Diego.
You make it sound like that's not like the deck doesn't do very much. All that deck does, but man, is it powerful when it does it.
Yeah.
And we see this Espeon GX being powered up on the bench. It's slowly but surely getting to the point where it's becoming a threat. Meanwhile, Diego does get its Vulpix knocked out, and Xander takes first blood here as he takes the first prize of the game. Well, of the first prize of game 1 in this top 4. And Diego looking to see if he can prepay the favor here to Xander.
Yep, now Diego is going to play that Wonder Energy down onto his Gardevoir. He's going to be able to get a lot of a relative damage down onto this Espeon GX as well. So looking forward to seeing what else he has in store for this turn. He's lost a lot of energies, just the way that his hand has played out. So the Twilight GX is also something that he might be looking to while we're in the early stages of this game, and not too much pressure is on him from Xander.
Yeah, the Wonder Energy was a very, very important card here for him to find against this Espeon GX. So now Diego still looking. Xander seems to be in the driver's seat right now, but definitely weary of what Diego might be able to muster up here. Diego brings that Sycamore up to the top of his discard pile, finds it with the Versus Seeker, plays the Sycamore. Down goes another Fairy Energy, though. So it looks like there's been quite a bit of damage dealt to the energies from Diego's deck because of Garbotoxin here.
Yeah, he's also down, looked like 3 VS Seeker now. So a lot of resources being thrown away early and often, but Diego knows that he can start to work back into the totals that he'd like to be at. He can put all of those cards back into his deck eventually. And
it looks like that eventually, maybe very soon here, as Diego is looking through all of his potential cards in his discard pile, definitely looking for item cards first and foremost, but also looking to bring some of these Fairy Energies back into his deck. He definitely has discarded quite a few of them. First of all, he's going to be playing a Super Rod, getting a couple of these Fairy Energies back, shuffling them back in, and that light shuffle does make me think that he's going to be using Twilight this turn.
Yeah, this is a great spot for Diego. Not only does the Wonder Energy stop confusion from coming into effect from the Espeon GX, but it means that if Xander does play a double colorless energy and try to get a good chunk of damage down onto the Gardevoir with Psychic, the Gardevoir can then retaliate right back with an infinite force, which will likely result in a knockout.
Yeah, almost certainly result in a knockout. But definitely interesting to see how many item cards Diego does bring back. It seems like it'll be all of them except for a rare candy.
Yeah, he wanted to grab some energy cards, I believe some double colorless and a few Fairy Energies, so could still have some back. Yeah, just that one rare candy, though.
Yeah, just that one rare candy.
That means Trashalanche is not doing much.
It was a very early Twilight, though, so at some point we could see that Trashalanche start doing damage again. But in the meantime, it's still a battle of Espeon against Gardevoir. Garbodor versus Gardevoir. One of the greatest matchups in this game.
They're messing with us.
I couldn't help it. All right, so Hex Maniac here, played by Xander.
Yeah, not all too relevant. He does play that double colorless energy, so trying to get some damage down onto this Gardevoir, but he needs Diego to whiff for quite a few turns if he wants to stay into this. His Espeon just doesn't line up too well with the Gardevoir. He can take the next knockout, but the way that these Pokemon interact with each other, Gardevoir seems to be favored. And wow, Acerola.
Well, you know, as far as turns go for Diego, that was one of the more anemic ones. You feel like he has a chance at, well, I guess it still remains to be seen, but you feel like he had a chance at just knocking out this Espeon GX, getting knocked out by the opposing Espeon GX, but maybe he could have had some sort of a counter knockout, depending on whether he can find a field blower or not. But either way, he will take a very passive route, which is still fine. It leads to Xander not really getting any offense going because of Acerola's effect, and it puts a lot of pressure on Xander too.
Yeah, this means that his Gardevoir can take the knockout on this Espeon without having too many energies on himself, which means that the Espeon that comes up afterwards won't be able to hurt the Gardevoir nearly as much.
We see a Bridget here from Xander, and honestly what that means is Xander just doesn't have very powerful turns available to him right now because of his draws. Don't get me wrong, it's not a weak Bridget, obviously. It'll find you 3 Trubbishes. But the fact that he had a Hex Maniac the previous turn, and on this turn just plays a Bridget, as opposed to playing something like a draw card and, you know, taking a 2 to 3 minute turn, really does tell you quite a bit about Xander's hand strength here.
Yeah, he's definitely slowing down, and it's unfortunate for him. He does have some option in his hand, but he wants to play them at more opportune times. He doesn't want to get rid of his rescue stretcher, and he's trying to find some use for that parallel city, but it just hasn't come into effect for him very well.
Yeah, unfortunately it hasn't, but I mean, still, it's not like he's in a bad spot. Neither of these players are really in a terrible spot quite yet. We see 3 psychic energies on the benched Espeon GX, and obviously 3 energies on the active Espeon as well. Now, Diego's going to be losing a bench spot. It looks like that Remoraid may be going.
Yeah, I think he's okay with that, Issa.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to get that auxiliary anyways.
I would be. You can always just field blower away that stadium at some point, bring another Remoraid into play or whatnot. Plenty of things you can do.
And it looks like Xander is going to use his Divide GX, try to get some of this math worked out in his favor. He's able to knock out the routes, place 2 damage counters onto the Tapu Lele, and start to work on the Gardevoir GX as well.
Diego draws his card. Looks through his available options. Looks like he still has plenty of options that are very powerful here. I mean, he can clearly just take a knockout on this Espeon GX with a Choice Band. Or a Double Colorless Energy or something along those lines.
Yeah, his Tapu Lele would be able to run through the Espeon with 200 hit points, but the way that Xander was able to set up his math by putting the 2 damage counters on the Tapu Lele means that Xander is really just a Choice Band of his own away from being able to knock out this Tapu Lele. So Xander is putting himself in relatively good spots, but he hasn't been able to handle these Gardevoirs yet. He hasn't even gotten to attack them very much, besides the one that was Acerola.
Yeah. You know it's been a long day when you see 8 pips on that 10 pip setting of dice, but you're right about that. He did have the knockout on the Tapu Lele, or with the Tapu Lele on the Espeon GX, and now Diego takes the lead here. Evens things up here with 4 prizes apiece against Xander Perot. Xander, though, this is where Xander needs to start finding additional attackers. The Espeons just really don't do enough in this matchup. When your opponent has things like that Wonder Energy, and your opponent has things like obviously 200 plus damage attacks through a Gardevoir GX, it's just very difficult for the Espeon GX deck to pull its own weight.
Yeah, we're a Guzma away from this game almost being over. Just the way that Gardevoir has set itself up on the bench there, 3 energies on this Espeon. This could get ugly very quickly.
I mean, when you want to talk about ugly, you're going to talk about a potential Trash Lance for 20 damage. Actually, I guess 40 damage because there's 2 pips on that die.
Diego gonna take a look at his discard pile after drawing the rescue stretcher, looking to see if there's anything relevant that he wants to save. And he is eyeing that Remoraid again. He really does value that auxiliary, and he does have the auxiliary in his hand.
These Gardevoirs are really starting to power themselves up here. Rescue stretcher, finding that Remoraid. 3 pips now.
Yeah, it looks like Diego does not have access to that Guzma. He had the Choice Band in his hands, so he has access to a lot of damage, but it doesn't do very much to this Trash Lance Garbodor, and he's not too worried about the Trash Lance Garbodor. It's not doing very much against him. So it looks like N is just going to be the play that he wants to go with here. Was able to have that Remoraid down, so eventually, if he does find the auxiliary and a field blower, he can start to find some extra cards that might be able to push him over the top.
So the Gardevoir GX obviously is just waiting in the wings there. I wouldn't be surprised to see it actually come out as early as like this turn, for example. If he finds, he still has to find a field blower, by the way, at some point.
It's scary to be the one who promotes first.
Right.
bringing up that Gardevoir with all the energies means that Psychic is going to attack into you first, so he's going to try to avoid that, and he feels safest just putting the 60 damage down and letting this Gardevoir that only has 50 damage on it take a potential Trash Lance.
Right, with the Trash Lance not dealing very much damage and your opponent's Psychic also not dealing very much damage. Now it's on Xander. This is turning into a very methodical game. Just mainly based on the fact that neither of these players is really getting any explosive draws. And here's a Guzma.
Oh, he's going for it.
Yeah, that Guzma bringing up that Gardevoir GX, which has been building up for a while now.
Yeah, being able to get the most damage you can into this. Actually looking to just soften it up first, it seems. He doesn't want to put his Espeon in harm's way if he doesn't have to, but it really is just a Guzma away and you lose all that potential damage.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, if Diego does find his own Guzma, you're absolutely right. Diego's going to be able to knock out that Espeon GX, assuming he doesn't get unlucky. And that'll be it for Xander's offense.
Yeah, it looks like he doesn't have a way to use his Guzma, get an extra energy onto the board and retreat. So he might not have that option available to him. The Parallel City
there
also
is that
makes
Guzma.
Things a little awkward.
That Guzma was in his hand, and up comes the Espeon GX, as now we see a Gardevoir potentially being able to deal first blood against this Espeon GX, and sure enough, it does, as now Espeon GX takes 120 damage against that Gardevoir GX, and it's on Xander to do something here, as they're trading 2 KOs, but at this point, Diego has dealt the strongest blow here.
Yeah, just imagine if Diego had a Float Stone available to him. He would have been able to take a knockout on that Espeon and left Xander with nothing. All he has would be Trash-a-Lanch Garbodors that can't do very much. He may have had to start acid spraying or something at that point, but there's nothing left. Now it's up to Xander trying to find his best option. He has VS Seeker, a few options in his discard pile, but which is the best for him here? Is it going to be a VS Seeker on that Guzma to bring up the biggest Gardevoir and try to put some damage into it, or does he need to find more cards?
It looks like he's contemplating the Sycamore. I think the Sycamore is the right option here, because even if you deal more damage to the Gardevoir, your hand still doesn't have that kind of pressure, right?
Yeah.
So you need to draw additional cards. You're okay with just exchanging blows with a Gardevoir at this point, as long as you can make sure that you get more additional attackers, because you do have quite a few non-GX and EX attackers in your deck.
Yeah, Psychic would have been just short of a knockout with the Guzma, so instead, going to opt to draw some more cards, try to find some more answers, and just hope that the pieces of the puzzle just don't align for Diego.
Yeah, he would have been 20 damage short, so that was not the correct option there for him. Now, Diego shuffling Xander's deck before Xander gets to draw 7 cards from it. At this point, we're looking for additional attackers, and the choice bands are definitely good too.
Yeah, Xander, off of these 7 cards, wasn't able to find himself an energy card, so that does limit potential attackers for him. He does have options to either just attack straight into this Gardevoir, he could even try to confuse it, just try to be a little bit disruptive and try to buy himself those extra turns that it looks like he's gonna need.
Xander still contemplating his decisions.
Yeah.
Deciding whether to attach a choice band or not seems to be the correct choice, and he does attach it.
Yeah, I think the best play is to confuse the Gardevoir.
Is it though?
I don't know if putting the most damage is gonna do too much. If you can just try to leave Diego with nothing, perhaps even have to attach and retreat, you can limit a lot of his options.
Yeah, I guess especially because he does play Acerola.
Yeah, but Xander does choose to go with getting some extra damage onto that Gardevoir. Could potentially help him just due to the fact that his Trash-a-Lanches aren't doing very much damage. So we'll see if that is able to help him out here. Diego on the other side does have N, so he's going to be able to find himself 4 fresh cards. And it looks like he's got a pretty nice knockout set up for himself in this SP on GX.
Yeah, both players are going to have access to 4 new cards here because of Diego's N here.
Diego likely trying to find that Octillery, does find that, also finds Guzma, which can be fantastic for cleaning up the game. Hasn't been able to find a Field Blower, though, which means that no abilities are still going to be around for Diego here. Just has to watch as Abyssal Hand does nothing for him.
Yeah, and it's not like he plays only 1 Field Blower either. Like, he does play 2, so he's just struggling really bad to be able to find these Field Blowers, even though he's given himself something like 5 or 6 turns to do so.
Very back and forth matchup from both players. They have been trading very wisely. A lot of damage has added up on Diego's side, and it's surprising to see that Xander has been so successful in this matchup. It seems very difficult on paper when you think about it.
It does. I mean, a lot of that had to do with the fact that Diego really hasn't been able to find any opportunities to attack. He's been short on things like Floatstone. He's been short on, obviously, the Field Blower that we keep talking about. And even then, like, the Parallel City has been kind of annoying Diego quite a bit for the last few turns as well. And now a Guzma again here from Xander. At this point, the Guzmas are really adding up, and you have to believe that Xander may very well be in the lead at this point.
Yeah, he doesn't have any Pokemon that are a DX or GX, so doesn't have to worry about the game ending just yet. Diego does have some pretty weak cards like the Tapu Lele with 60 damage on it already, so Xander could be eyeing up some potential targets to end the game.
So at this point, Diego needs to maintain a small amount of items in his discard pile. He doesn't want to make the Tapu Lele be an easy knockout. At the same time, though, he still needs to be able to. Well, there's an Acerola here from Diego as he picks up that Tapu Lele, which could have potentially been a liability. And now he's making it so that there's almost no chance that Xander can take an easy prize here, an easy 2 prizes, leaving himself with only an Octillery in play. So even though Diego struggled to find any answer to the Garbotoxin, he's still in a position where it's going to be very difficult for him to get knocked out in return. And Diego does get a knockout on this Garbodor. Diego down to a single prize. Xander down to 2 prizes.
Yeah, Diego doing some math, trying to avoid Tapu Lele, double colorless energy choice band knocking him out. I think he was safe regardless, but just wants to play it a little close to his hand there, holding on to these cards if he doesn't have to use them just yet.
We do have an update here with Naoto Suzuki being down 1 game against Sho Sasaki, as Sho is ahead 1-0 against him.
That is going on in the other top 4 match. We don't have that streamed, but both Japanese players playing the Golisopod Garbodor version.
And you have to believe that the winner of this match is going to be favored against that Garbodor Golisopod deck. The Garbodor Golisopod deck is very powerful against other Garbodor decks. Well, I guess Xander may very well have a decent matchup against, or a poor matchup against the
well, he's got the Flareon.
So that's true. He does play Flareon.
I've seen the matchup one, and I'm sure it could happen again. And of course, for Diego's side, when he's playing the Gardevoir deck against that, you'd think that it would be pretty good for him.
Yeah. But that is a story to be told tomorrow, as tonight one of these players has to emerge victorious to move on to the finals, as well as one of the Japanese players playing on the other side.
And wow, just a pass out of Xander. He's going to try to buy himself some time here.
Xander did not want to bring up any of these Garbodors because they wouldn't get a knockout here for Xander. Actually, honestly, Diego, what does Diego need to do? Nothing really, right? 4 pips now for Diego's discard pile, as there's now 4 items there, but still, there's a Guzma, and that should be knockout. That should be the game. Yeah,
he can now finally use that ability, get an extra energy into play, retreat his routes, and that's a knockout on the Garbotoxin Garbodor. Diego's up 1 game.
All right, Diego 1-0 up a game against Xander Perot in this Garbodor versus Gardevoir matchup. You have to you have to appreciate this matchup, honestly. These are two very top decks that attack the format in different ways, one of them being through stage 2s, and the other one obviously being the Garbodor deck, which we've come to appreciate over the last few months.
You can see all the players that stuck around. I can see a lot of familiar faces, some Schultz brothers in there. It's great to see everybody sticking around.
It is getting late into the evening, but people are interested in seeing what exactly comes out victorious in this matchup.
Yep, I know everyone at home is probably still very excited about that too. So guys, make sure that you get on your social media, use that hashtag #PlayPokemon. Let us know who you want to win. Is it Diego from Argentina, or are you rooting for the USA player Xander Perot?
I think it's a smart bet to vote Diego right now. I think Diego seems to have the matchup advantage of being up 1-0 with 45 minutes remaining on the clock. I think smart money's on Diego, but obviously it's hard to bet against Xander, who has come out of the senior division, and he's just come out blazing, man. He's earned himself a regionals win, and now he's on the verge of potentially earning himself a worlds win to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, getting to this table is phenomenal, and I'm sure he wants to build on that, but he also has to appreciate just getting there is something worthwhile.
Diego, a veteran of the game, about as much of a veteran as you can be in this game. Diego has been around in this game. You can actually consider Xander a veteran too, honestly, though. Even though he's a very young player, he's been playing most of his life.
The amount of games he's played makes him a veteran.
Oh, absolutely.
And both these players are starting to get set up for us now. We'll see what they have in store for us.
How sick is it that I've been playing?
We'll find you a help group.
Hopefully in my retirement home. My retirement community. All right, Xander is shuffled for him. All right, Xander right away finds a Pokemon, a couple of them actually, so there will be no more mulligans, and we'll see these players set up.
Oh, finds 2 field blowers that he can't use. Let's see what the prize cards have for us here.
Looks like Xander or Diego's going to be going first with these prizes. Tapu Lele, Guzma, Bridget, Curlia, and Vulpix. These are some pretty big prizes.
Yeah, that's the only Alolan Vulpix in his deck, so he won't have access to that. We saw how great it was for him last time.
Couple of Espeons, though, and a Tapu Lele to go with it.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of SP Guard players only playing 2 Espeons. Thankfully, he is playing 3 in his deck, so he won't just end up short on an Energy Evolution Eevee, unless, of course, that Espeon is already in his hand. So we'll see if that works out for Xander. And thankful the positioning of his prize cards will work out for him. The Tapu Lele and the Espeon near the bottom, where players tend to draw from, means that he'll have access to those early if he is taking knockouts.
The issue that I see with Xander's prizes as well, though, is that he only plays 2 Tapu Leles, and with one of them being prized, he could very well run into a problem in the early game where he needs another Tapu Lele and he's already used his only one. It's not difficult for that situation to come across. It's for him to come across that situation, but again, something we have to wait and see as we see an Eevee and a couple of Psychic Energies, which means he will be able to Energy Evolution here. There was no Espeon GX in his hand, which means he'll be able to find it.
Xander has once again drawn himself into a very poor hand. He didn't have a supporter that would benefit him, just the Hex Maniac, I believe. So after this Espeon comes into play, he's just going to be hoping that Diego returns the favor with that N.
And looking at Diego's hand, he doesn't have access to the end to return the favor with.
Yeah, he's got an Ultra Ball, so we could see some plays out of him, but that we might see Xander once again just stuck.
Well, Xander is meticulously looking through his deck.
One easy note there is the 2 Espeon. When you're looking for that, you kind of notice when 2 are gone.
Sure, you'll immediately notice that. The other one would probably be Tapu Lele. I'm sure that he'll notice that one pretty early.
Absolutely.
On as
well. Oh, down comes the Espeon. This does thin out his deck by 1 more card, so helps his odds a little bit. Maybe that top deck can happen for him once again.
All right. Xander plays a Trubbish before passing this turn. But it looks like that's the end of the turn.
Over to Diego. The way that his hand pans out, it looks like he has an Ultra Ball for the Tapu Lele, which could find him a Bridget, which he would like to find the Alolan Vulpix to keep going, but it's not going to be there for him. So he might have to go with an alternate strategy. We'll see what he decides with the Tapu Lele.
Yeah, he still has no idea that the Alolan Vulpix is in his prizes, though I'm sure he's about to find out. But that does scare me quite a bit because his hand is supporterless at this point, so he might have to go with something like an N here with his Tapu Lele, which would obviously be very helpful for Xander.
Yeah, he did pull one of those Professor Sycamores up to the top. He might be thinking about that, but just taking a look right now, it actually looks like he's pulling Ralts around. Can't make up his mind.
Well, I can't make up my mind either. I really don't know what I want him to do here. I think if I'm Diego, I'm probably going for that end. I'm trying to remember what cards he has left in his hand and if he needs to conserve those resources. I think one of them is a Super Rod, the other one's a Curlia. And those are definitely resources I'd like to conserve, especially once I've discarded a rare candy. But remains to be seen. Again, Diego's still searching through his deck. He really can't make up his mind. Finds the Tapu Lele here, and I mean, Xander's got to be crossing his fingers for it. Oh my goodness, Diego was so close to picking up that end, and Xander had to be just crossing his fingers for it. Diego is not aware of the fact that Xander's hand is so poor, by the way.
Yeah,
he really isn't.
He sees that it only his 3 cards, so that might give him a little bit of a hint that you just hope that maybe your opponent just doesn't have anything. But he is going to use the Sycamore, and that's going to find him 7 cards, and he can really start to mount a big board presence here in the coming turns. Even finding that Remoraid, which means that Octillery could see some play.
Yeah, Diego may not be aware of just how important this play was for him, but it absolutely was the best play for him, given our knowledge of both of these players' hands.
Well, let's see what the top deck is here for Xander.
Xander is top decked out of this situation before. We've seen how that N was very timely for him in Game 1 in this exact situation. Will it be timely for him again? He squeezes his hand, finds a double colorless energy. Well, actually, it looks like he found maybe a Hex Maniac or something. I don't know.
Not sure what he's got there, and it looks like he can't do very much. Yeah, just a Garbodor, it looks like.
It was a Hex Maniac that he found.
Oh, he had that last turn.
Oh, did he?
It's the Garbodor was the new pickup.
All right, well, either way, Xander forced to pass. Diego gets the good news at this point.
Yeah, just Diego has to make a decision on how many resources he wants to commit here. He has the VS Seeker, so he can grab the Sycamore once again.
We find a Curlia here with a Rescue Stretcher.
Yep, he's got Ultra Ball as well, so he can go and grab another Curlia and continue to play it a little slow if he chooses. And he can use that Sycamore and really just start to burn through his deck. He also has the option to grab Octillery if he wants.
Right.
That can draw him some cards.
I think Octillery may be the better play in this particular case, but it's close. And sure enough, he goes for Octillery.
Yeah, Octillery leaves the option for him to draw into some Rare Candy and Gardevoir combinations, which would be helpful for him here.
So Diego now shuffling his deck. He has an Octillery in play as well as that Curlia. Plays a Choice Band, so and he can choose to just use Octillery's Abyssal Hand and not play the Versus Seeker, or he can Versus Seeker here before Abyssal Handing, but he will be doing the Abyssal Hand first. He does not have a Rare Candy, but he does find a Gardevoir GX here.
And he's already down the Rescue Stretcher and the Super Rod, so that means that Twilight GX is going to get used pretty early in this game, being that he's already done all these resources.
Well, there's a Sycamore here, discarding these 4 cards from his hand.
Rare Candy, Gardevoir.
Wow. Perfect cards here from Diego as he finds a Gardevoir GX.
Yep, able to use his ability to attach 1 extra Fairy Energy, and he can start to apply some pressure. Not a knockout just yet, but with every energy, he gets closer to potentially knocking out this Espeon, which is the only threat that Xander has available. This looks like a pretty good turn, though, for Diego to start using his Twilight.
That's exactly what I was about to say, was that I'd much rather be using Twilight GX here than dealing 60 damage to a Trubbish.
Oh, for sure.
And so will Diego, as we see all of these item cards just likely getting shuffled back into Diego's deck.
Have you ever trash-lanced for 0? Because I haven't.
I was going to say I have, but I'd be lying.
Well, looks like Diego may leave 1 in his discard, considering it, but now he's gonna take all the items out of his discard pile, and Xander is just left wondering what is left on the top of his deck, because he needs a supporter card to get him out of here quick.
He needs a ton of help from the top of his deck. He was in dire straits last turn. In this turn, I mean, it's just almost irreparable damage that's being dealt to him here. And
yeah,
remember, he is down 1-0 Big time top deck opportunity, and he misses it.
Just a Trubbish.
A lowly Trubbish, forced to draw it, play it onto the bench, and Hex Maniac plus pass. Diego well aware at this point of exactly what's going on, but 2 Gardevoir GXs. I mean, even if Xander gets a perfect top deck from this point on, it may very well be too little too late, as Diego's field is just overwhelming at this point.
The VS Seeker is going to go grab Guzma.
Wow. Guzma now at this point. Targeting that Espeon GX with 3 energies on it. Tapu Lele being the active Pokemon, dealing 100 damage to Espeon GX, 130 because of Choice Band. And that's just, I mean, it's the perfect attacker in this case. You're not risking any of your Gardevoir GXs. You're not risking any damage. What can Xander draw?
He can draw a Float Stone.
What can Xander draw that's relevant?
Not a Float Stone. It does lock in the Garbotoxin ability for him, but that's not going to help him. In fact, that might even hinder him. It means that getting a Tapu Lele does nothing for him. In fact, he's just going to play out his entire hand at this point, knowing that Ultra Ball does nothing for him now. Nothing to hide. Diego knows that there was nothing, so now he's really just relying on the top of his deck to get him something.
Small victories here for Xander and big-time defeats as he deals 120 damage to Tapu Lele. But not what you want to be doing. Diego has all of the resources that he needs and then some. Plays a Sycamore, discarding a lowly Diancie to draw himself 7 new cards. That's a trade-off I'll take any day of the week.
I like that one, yeah. And wow, even drawing into Rare Candy and Gallade if he so chooses. Even though that's not a very good attacker in this matchup, he just has these cards available to him if he wants.
Diego just has to make sure that he doesn't make any giant mistakes here.
And I don't know if there's a way to lose this. His opponent has no hand. Oh, Sycamore!
Oh my goodness, the absolute perfect card out of the top of the deck here for Xander, as he draws himself 7 brand new cards. All of the Xander Perot fans, you have a breath of life here, as you have 7 new cards to work with.
Gonna take a look at that discard pile, see how many items we're up to. It is 1. So Trashalanch is not doing very much. He does not have access to any great attacks other than potentially Tapu Lele trying to get some damage onto this Gardevoir, but that's not really gonna get him all the way there.
Will Xander be able to take advantage of this just absolutely amazing top deck? 0 card hand onto a Sycamore for 7 new ones. Just the absolute most brilliant card he could have drawn. But again, we've been talking about just how it may very well be too little too late regardless of what he draws. It's time for him to either prove us wrong or prove us right.
Xander is going to pick that Eevee. He does not have access to Energy Evolution due to Garbotoxin. I don't even know if he has another Espeon available to him just because of his prizes.
Yeah, 2 of them are prized, and he's not taking a prize yet.
So it just shows how depleted he is of resources, just because of the way that he was drawing and the way that his prize cards worked out.
Xander still taking a couple of looks through his deck. Ultimately, is he choosing to miss?
Well, he grabbed the Eevee,
Oh, yeah,
but he
grabbed
was
the
just
Eevee.
looking through, trying to see what else is there.
I'd like to thank each and every one of you guys tuning in from home right now, as I'm sure it's been a long day for each of you guys who have been tuning in from the very beginning of this stream this morning. We're well over 12 hours deep, and this is the final match. This is the final round, the top 4 before we head to the finals tomorrow. So once again, thank you to each and every one of you guys who are tuning in from home, and a special thank you to all of you guys tuning into our social media and using the hashtag #PlayPokemon to chat with other fans of the game who are also watching from home.
Yep, we see that Xander had to go with the acid spray. It was the only option that he saw fit, and even then he couldn't even get a heads there, not able to remove an energy card. And Diego is not going to slow down. Grabbing that Guzma, going to take out the Eevee, which potentially was the only threat that Xander had available with a rescue stretcher for an Espeon. Not even that is available to him now. So
on the plus side, though, he's now dealing double damage with his Trash Lunge, going up to 40 damage from 20.
Double the damage.
Hey, glass half full.
That's right.
All right, Diego down to 3 prizes. Xander still has 6 remaining.
Yep.
Rescue stretcher finds him the Espeon GX that he's sorely been missing, and a couple of Eevees to go with it.
Gets to shuffle
those
those
for
back
for
in.
Xander.
Has the N in his hand, so he's going to be able to draw into 6 fresh cards. And Diego goes down to 3, but I don't know if there's much that he needs to draw at this point.
Diego could realistically go
built
down to 0 and still potentially be fine.
Yeah.
Xander plays that in. Both players shuffle their hands back into their deck and draw cards equal to the amount of prize cards they have remaining. Kind of the eternal equalizer whenever your opponent gets ahead of you. And we'll have to see if it's enough of an equalizer here, as Diego is 3 prizes ahead of Xander with 6-3, with the prize lead at 6-3.
Yep.
I've never looked at Diego be so concentrated in my life.
That is a man who's determined.
All right, and we have a new update, by the way, guys. Our match that is not being streamed is now tied at 1 game apiece. So, that one's getting close.
Yeah.
I wonder if Xander will be able to reciprocate here.
Well, he was able to find himself an Eevee, giving him a little bit of life here. Now just has to decide, well, what his best option is if he even wants to bother attacking this turn. Acid Spray won't provide any effect. It would just do 10 damage, so no real point in that.
So remember, guys, if this match ends sometime soon, we will be going to Naoto Suzuki and Sho Sasaki, who are both tied at 1 game apiece. That all depends on whether this match finishes before that other match finishes or not. But in the meantime, Diego has definitely not closed this game out whatsoever, as Xander is still putting up a fight, about as much of a fight as he can, given the hand discrepancies here. And honestly, Xander's just gotten not only is this a potentially very poor matchup for Xander, but he's also gotten pretty unlucky in this game.
Yeah, it has been pretty unfortunate for him. If he didn't have the top decked N in the first game, we could have seen a series that lasted 20 minutes, honestly.
Nobody wants to see that.
The fact that he's gotten this far, due to all of the unfortunate luck that he's had, it's pretty telling that he's been able to make this a series.
Yeah. Xander Pero is the last remaining North American representative, too. So, for those of you who like to keep the trophy at home and you're North American, specifically from the United States, this is your last hope, and you're seeing it kind of fade away as Diego slowly shutting the door on Xander's opportunities here. Xander doing what he can with the Bridget, but for those of you that want to keep the trophy at home, you're going to have to hope for
Xander.
Xander
to have the trophy first. Shintaro is still holding on to it.
Well, I guess technically because we are in Anaheim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. This could be And actually, there's a 50% chance, give or take, obviously, of the Japanese players taking the trophy home for a second consecutive year.
Yeah.
This is a lot of good stories coming out of this top 4 here.
Xander just using that Bridget, trying to get a couple more Pokemon onto his bench there. Finds the Eevee and the Trubbish. But once again, just some energies with Floatstone and a Field Blower. Trying to take out a 230 hit point Gardevoir GX. Gonna be pretty difficult.
Attaches that Psychic Energy onto the Eevee. He cannot use Energy Evolution, though, because of Garbodor's ability, Garbotoxin. Diego just quickly takes down the prize, goes down to 2 prizes. Trubbish goes down. Garbodor becomes the active Pokemon. 6 prizes to 2 for Xander Perot. He plays a Field Blower on his own Floatstone. It's a bold move. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. See if it works out for him.
Yeah, he removed the Floatstone so that he could use his own ability here. Gets the Espeon GX into play. Now can reattach a Floatstone if he wants to so that he can start attacking.
Does have that Floatstone still in his hand.
Yep, and this looks like the last stand that he has available for us.
And we just see why this matchup seems to be so poor for Xander. He really does not have the ability to attack with Garbodor at any point in this match where it's an actual relevant attack. As right now, it would be dealing 60 damage. At least this way with Espeon GX, you can hope to trade 2-hit knockouts. But the problem is that when you, if your opponent does have a Field Blower for your Garbotoxin, then all of a sudden your opponent can definitely start knocking out these Espeon GXs. This 200 is very achievable for this Gardevoir deck.
Yep, and it looks like Xander decided to use his Divide GX. He gets to knock out the Tapu Lele that had some damage counters on it and start to work on this Gardevoir on the bench.
5 now? It's on 6. Or 6 now. It's on 6 now. 10 to 4. 5. Okay.
All right. So 2 prizes to 4 now. Little victories. Oh, there's that Field Blower. Gets rid of that Floatstone here for Xander.
Yeah, this means we might see Diego use the end just so that he can use Abyssal Hand and draw into some resources.
A double Colorless Energy wins the game, right?
7, yes. 7 is good.
Choice Band and a single Fairy Energy would also be fine. A couple of Fairy Energies would be fine.
Yep, so there are definitely a few outs.
And remember, he has access to Abyssal Hand here.
Yep, that Field Blower did open up that option for him. So he'd like to see these cards off of the first 2. It gives him better outs on the Abyssal Hand. Being able to play anything from these 2 cards would be great for him.
All right, we're going to see these 2 cards here from Diego. So far, neither of them is helpful. Has to Abyssal Hand, draws 3 more. Choice Band's one of them, but he does not hit the energy. So the game still continues as of right now.
Just short.
Nothing he can do about a knockout at this point. Does not have access to it anymore unless he obviously doesn't play Shaman or anything like that. I'm sure at this point he'd trade his Kingdom for an Oranguru, but doesn't have that either.
Yeah, that won't be available for him. So Diego's just going to be able to put down this 150 damage there.
Yeah, he chose not to play the Choice Band. There was no need to.
Yep.
But now Xander, I mean, he still has 150 damage on his Espeon GX.
Yeah, that was his big attacker that he had left, and now he can never leave it active. It'll just get knocked out. And
we're now at 4 items in the discard pile here for Diego. So even though Diego didn't find what he needed, he's still in amazing shape here. Very little Xander can do.
Yeah, well, one thing to note is when Diego used that Field Blower, it opened up Xander to having abilities. Now Xander has the option to maybe grab himself a Tapu Lele if he likes. And maybe he can find something to get himself rolling here.
All right, the Ultra Ball finds an Espeon GX. So he's planning on retreating this Espeon GX and potentially Psybeaming with the other. But again, Mystery Energy kind of stopping that too.
Wonder.
Wonder Energy, sorry.
Yep. Xander does have 2 cards left in his hands. He chose not to grab Tapu Lele, so must have something pretty good available to himself here.
I guess we'll find out in just a few seconds as Diego is shuffling Xander's deck up. Xander takes a look at Diego's discard pile. Probably doesn't like what he sees. Counts Diego's deck up. He's looking for any potential opportunity.
I mean, this is what you got to do, but
I mean, I think I'd stop counting after like 15.
27 in there, so.
He's like, I guess if I survive 26 more turns and then I have to add in the ends, let's say 50 more turns or so, and this game's mine. I mean, I understand this is the top 4, and you do not want to give up any potential chance of winning.
I mean, it's so hard to strand your opponent into the active spot with something that they don't want anymore, just because of Acerola and Guzma. Pokemon don't get stuck active anymore since Burning Shadows happened. So
right.
Xander is looking for it, but it's so hard to actually make it happen.
It looks like he's going to Versus Seeker for an N here. He's going to give Diego a 2-card hand and himself a 4-card hand. But, I mean, remember, because of Diego's auxiliary, any N is really not that threatening against them.
Yep, unless he's able to find himself a tool for his Garbodor.
He does play that in.
He's going to try to find it. A double colorless energy and a tool would likely be the best for him here. He'd be able to get some pretty relevant damage onto the Gardevoir. But that's pretty much all he has left for him. He has to stop Abyssal Hand, and we'll see what he really has now.
All right, so Diego shuffles his hand into his deck. Xander does as well. I mean, Xander has to find quite a bit of magic out of these 4 cards, and I think I'm underselling this situation. Finds a couple of Versus Seekers and a double colorless energy to go with that Sycamore. Is there anything he can do outside of just hope that Diego doesn't draw anything? And I mean, looking at Diego's hand, he hasn't drawn anything yet, but can that really be the case?
Yeah, he's found the double colorless energy, but didn't find the tool card. So it's going to be pretty hard to stop Diego here. Trying to find something he can do, but I'm not seeing it.
My brain is trying to wrap itself around this situation. Xander really trying pretty much everything he can at this point. Throwing everything but the kitchen sink at Diego. But Diego not.
Yeah, Diego wanted to make sure that was the energy attachment for the turn.
Right.
These turns for Xander have been pretty awkward, so it's hard to keep track of everything that's happened.
Xander still contemplating his decision. I know that he's been hurried up by the judge at this point. We saw the judge make a kind of show that to him. But Xander, I mean, honestly, Xander is just looking for any potential situation here that can extend this game.
And it looks like his choice is going to be Espeon attacking into that Gardevoir GX, which means that we're in the same scenario. Double colorless energy would be able to clean
colorless
this
energy,
game.
that is going to be it. Double colorless energy is exactly what he needed. Xander does scoop up his cards.